created my own little algorithms to do one thing or another, like disease states, a mortality algorithm. And
I think you will have a whole levels of robotics, the humanoid robots or non-humanoid robots, whatever the case is.
But the one that I really gravitated towards was Alteryx, low code, no code, business intelligence stuff, data science, machine learning, things like that.
Audio, the text, and then there's big metaverse bug. Everybody knows the metaverse.
Another week of AI.
Ay.
There you go.
Another Monday.
Yeah, you know what the interesting thing in with all lines, it's either ay 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 or ay ay ay. Yeah, it's just
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like
any language you try it on, you can always make it work. Anytime.
Yeah, I've had a lot of ay lately. Oh man, but you only have to have one of the real good ay's to know. Okay, the 2 months, 2 weeks, whatever, 2 days of work was worth it.
And beginning the conversation is always something exciting. Like, we're about to get into some conversation that we don't know what's going to happen. But at the end of the conversation, if ay goes like, ay, it's sort of like the weight of the shoulder is on you after the conversation, right? Usually with the conversation, you take the weight off, right? Yeah. But I think one of the guests offline was saying robotics, right? We really talk about AI a lot, but we don't talk about the robots specifically, And like you just said, we had some few AI moment this week. I'm telling you, every time I hear about the robots, I'm just like, man, when are we gonna have to really worry about these robots? Because these robots are everywhere and AI is everywhere. What do you keep up with? AI or the robots that are using AI, right? What do we
Well, I can give you a human perspective of it. As a woman that wears all the hats, I feel like a robot sometimes.
Yeah.
I think I am a robot.
So to know that there is something else that is in position to assist us to get some of those tasks complete, then it's a good thing.
Some. And I would say major for me, right? Like majority of the things. If I could just do some of the things that I enjoy in life and I have 6 robots walking around the house and not destroying the walls or destroying everything around my house, let's bring them on. Let's bring them on. Maybe preferably for free or something like that. Not that expensive $200,000 Kim Kardashian robots.
Well, I don't know. What was that movie with what's her name? Megyn Kelly?
Megan Fox.
Megan Fox? Well, yeah.
Oh yeah, Machine Gun Kelly. Yeah. I didn't ever watch that movie, but I've heard, so I'll just leave it at that.
Right.
So there was a cost.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it funny how technology expands, but we still come back to the fundamentals? So buying a robot ultimately will be like buying a car. What model you got? How durable is it? Is it manufacturing is still part of the process and the Six Sigma controls. So do you want to spend a lot for something? It'll be like, oh no, he owns an Omnibot. It stays broken all the time,
Yeah, I'd always go with the Honda.
Or you can go for Ford, right? Because Ford stands for what? Found on road dead.
Yeah. So, and then, kids, right? They're going to be burning each other. Is that your family's robot? How cheap?
Right. I only be friends with you because you got that model, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've had just a few robots, the iRobots, the little floor robots, and those, if you can keep them working, are fantastic. So I would welcome, as a single father, I would welcome having something that would do the dishes or maybe pick up an odd chore. Maybe if I could teach it to mow the lawn. I know I'm reaching, but there'd be a lot of odd chores that would definitely, as a single parent, if you had a robot, would be awesome.
They have to have a robot lawnmower if there's a robot vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, there's a lawnmower actually robot that exists. Vacuum cleaner exists. One that doesn't exist, which I'm disappointed by, is the dishwasher and the laundry. Right? Where's my washer and dryers that has robots in it somehow to do all the automation of me not folding the clothes anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was at a trade show. They got that. But my other thought is, then when will the groups tell you that you're a bad parent because you've robbed your children of the opportunity to do chores? So no, you can't win no matter what. So you just make a life choice and embrace it and move forward, you know?
It's interesting how people judge, right?
Yeah. Well, if you ever go to YouTube and check out these clips about like how the parents will tell the stories about how hard their life was. And I imagine my kids like growing up, and then I'm telling them like my life was so bad, where I had to put the washer in one washer and the dryer in another one. I had to keep an eye on my time, you know, like our parents didn't have to go through that, but I guess I have to come up with some hard struggle stories, right?
Well, our parents probably walked hundreds of miles in the snow.
That's literally all the
they told us anyway.
Yeah, they have more character than us.
2 hours in the snow.
Character has been lost. You know, the character development that says, okay, you have to build it or you have to be patient. And now information, like we talked about this before with digital natives, instant gratification. Yeah. Instant. Where you and I were kids on Sunday nights, we had to wait for like The Simpsons to show at 6:30 on Sunday. And if you missed it, you missed it. It was done. Mm-hmm. And so nowadays it's a different, you know, kids have a different it's a different psychology of, you know, how quickly things are going to things are expected, where when we know how to be a little bit patient on the way we can let things evolve or learn. But, you know, that's the difference between us. Our parents, my father's way more patient than I am. I know that much.
Well, that's interesting. That the intersectionality of what you just said and artificial intelligence. A lot of the things when it comes to what we see and how we see it and how it's delivered is a hijacking of natural processes, and artificial intelligence is used to do that, right? As far as what other impulses we have and what are our future impulses, and then to use artificial intelligence to gain the insight and then act upon it. So what we may say is, you got a spoiled kid was a kid who was being observed by software, and then what should normally happen doesn't happen, and voila, you know, the objective of whoever owns the AI is met. Eyeballs on the screen, actions, act now, do now, whatever it might be. So a lot of the things that we've been blaming ourselves as parents for or family members for, it was engineered for you to do those things based upon the knowledge that they have of human behavior, right? The psychology of sales, all of those things together. Those fields existed, but when you apply artificial intelligence to it, now it existed on steroids. So
yeah.
It's not your fault, but it's your fault. But it's not your fault.
Well, you know, we always talk about like if you have to identify anything in the universe, if you have to identify it, you have to be able to label it correctly, because that's what comes next. Once you identify it, then you have to be able to label it. So when it comes to AI, I think we talk about labeling a lot because we mislabeled AI in so many ways that the conversation goes all over the place. All of a sudden, you call it AI. It's like now we don't know how to label it anymore. Right. But if you think about labeling AI correctly, and if somebody didn't have the marketing genius in their head and some techie was just like, you know what AI is? This is what AI is. In my opinion, AI is nothing but data manipulation, right? Data matrix, right? You know, like you're able to just manipulate data, right? That's all you're doing. Just like we said, you're manipulating data because you've collected that much data. Right. And if you don't manipulate the data sets that you don't have, somebody else will. Right. And see, the spectrum of conversation opens up wider now because you're thinking about, I manipulate the data because I've collected it. Let's call it Facebook, right? But there's other people that collect more data than Facebook. And those guys can manipulate data even further and better and decisions. Right. So,
y'all are talking about platforms, but I'm on here because I'm talking about parents and children and AI and mislabeling and biases and giving them an opportunity to see themselves, see themselves and see their children in a different light. I believe that's essentially why we're here. in our lives today, as well as here on this platform and with AI, with I, papi, I.
That's
You
a
know,
good one.
to get rid of the mislabeling.
Yeah.
Historically, we all have been mislabeled. We all have been placed inside of a box where someone wants to point a finger and say, okay, based upon how this individual moves and the neighborhood they live in, this is their expectation, their life expectation, their life trajectory. With AI in the space that we're in, knowing that it's been in existence, to really tell people, hey, guess what? Not only has it been in existence, but there are resources and tools that are set in place for you to learn data literacy in order for you to be able to change the trajectory of your household, of your life, and your children's life. And so, as you guys, you're talking heavily in technology. Oftentimes, parents do not even feel like they communicate well with their children because they feel as though their children are in school with their friends, and the parents are either at home as a housewife or a house husband. How do we communicate with one another? All of the things you guys are saying, Facebook and all of the other social media outlets, yes, that's AI, as well as Apple, Google. What are some of those other platforms that we utilize in our house to tell us the time? Turn on the radio.
Netflix.
all of the things that we are a part of it already. If we can really become engaged and not Alexa, yes, if we could become engaged and join the conversation as being a part of the conversation and not on the outside looking in, then we can write a new story for ourselves. And I feel like that's why we're all at in III to say, hey, you know what? We don't have to worry. Let's be cognizant of what we're doing and what we're participating in, and the changes that we could put forth when we become a part of the existence of AI.
Right.
Well, curiosity brings you closer, and fear creates that distance. So I think we have lots of fear right now, and that's what's creating the distance between people and AI. So let's get curious. And the reason we are here tonight specifically is to get that curiosity, kind of look into somebody who's a parent, who's a business owner, who's ambitious, member of society, somebody who has a lot of questions about AI. So we have a special guest, we're going to bring her in, and we're going to have Lucky Masako have lots of this, small discussions. But what we really like to know is an impression of AI from somebody who doesn't work with AI continuously, or probably doesn't listen to a podcast about AI, like AI, right? They have their own workflow, and how do they engage with AI in that workflow. So we would love to hear all about that, and then frame our conversation based on their perspective, because we have our own perspective, but Masako is that person that can, join into the conversation and draw that perspective out of the community. So without further ado, let's introduce Aingi, who is going to join Lucky and Masako and have a conversation to preferably have some of our questions answered. So Aingi, welcome to AI.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, Aingi. Thanks for joining us. I love the fact that you reached out and just showed an inquisitiveness to understand about what your best next steps are, being that you have a young son and you don't have a technology background. Just the fact that you're courageous enough to raise your hand and say, hey, I have some questions. Could you help walk with me to understand this, so I can understand myself better, so I can understand my child better, so we can do this life better together. So Lucky and you, please, let's have a conversation.
When it comes to AI, or I call it IT. I'm going to go with IT first, because when I started learning computer back in the day, it was IT, right? Now, for me, it is knowledge not used, and then no, I'm not abreast of what's going on. So back in the day, I'm the one who taught everybody how to use Microsoft Access, PowerPoint, the computer. I've got my friends to buy a computer, teach them how to use the computer, get on social media, set up an email, and so on and so forth. And then when I went to work as a secretary back in the day, I used to do that too. I would be fixing the printer, doing all type of stuff, just curious about the computer and all that it has to do, all that it can do for us. But then I came to the US and started working. And while I use AI at work, it's still different. Now it's like, wait a minute. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening that AI can do that could help myself, my son. And the fact that he wants to do coding and he's looking into drawing and he's asking me questions now. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I've been out of the loop so long that for right now it's like fresh. So now I want to know what's happening, what's out there, and how I can utilize it. Like me wanting to get into starting my business, getting stuff to create posts for me and so on, because I don't have the time. So that's so for me, that's so this comes in. And when Masako was like, we're talking AI, I'm like, I gotta be there. So that's how I came in.
Awesome. Lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, AI is grown so much, and it's gotten to where the end users now, people out like ourselves, we can use it for everyday usage. I've worked in a lot of development, and then I've also worked with students that are learning and trying to figure out, okay, what can I use with AI now, or what's available in the realm of Chat GPT. That's a big area. Everyone's familiar with it, right? Chat GPT, yeah. and there's areas for business that you can take advantage of, and there's areas with technology. But then again, you always want to be careful of the information that you get and make sure that it's accurate. That's just the first thing. Is check yourself as you get information. It's a good way to start, but then you want to start building using that as more like as an appendage, like an advisor, and then from there it gives you a good reference point of where you want to start. For kids in technology, that's where I love it. There's such a huge advantage with kids now in technology. And speaking about your son, I'm a single father. I raise kids. My kids are a little bit older now, but I've raised, and I'm also an instructor, professor. I teach AI, and also I assist with ethical hacking and things of that nature. And I've noticed the progression of different ages and students. And now students, the younger generation, we'll just say 18 or 15, 18 to 20-year-olds, they're in like the stuck generation, because they have so much technology, they're stuck, but they know that there's opportunity there. All of those things that stick them to those devices now can also enable them. There's algorithms that as soon as they start doing things, then we'll start feeding them, things they need to learn. If they want to get into, say, for example, IT, like you said, when you and I got into IT, it was different. You had to read a book, you had to research, or you just had to just learn on the fly, right?
No, we had to get them big books and used to learn binary, ones and zero and zero and one and one and one. I went close to being a CCNA, I think it's called, Cisco Networking Associates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the thing is now there's things that they can pick up easily, and AI can help them in coding, understanding code, the syntax of code, and then if it's not correct, they learn it. But it's a huge advantage. You gain years of understanding of code in weeks because of AI. And I think it enables them to be, or I think it's a disadvantage not learning on your own and making mistakes, but it's almost having a big brother of information that just pours in and says, okay, here's what you want to learn. You want to learn about developing an iPhone. You want to learn how to develop an Android. You want to learn how to develop, specifically apps. You want to learn how to develop an AI or websites or what have you. They can just pick it up so quick. And that's where the advantages of AR and AI are now. We've progressed far enough where you can trust the information that's given to you. Not with complete, you also want to double check, but for the most part, you can trust it pretty much,
Yeah.
And it all depends on the use case. So, what you're looking for, what your son's for, and we can get to more specifics. But YouTube, they have an algorithm of how to say, if you were learning how to do large language models, and you just type in large language models, and you're fed a bunch of information. That in itself is just gobs of information you can get fed just sitting there. And anytime you're learning, I consider that education, that's a skill, and then you get to apply it. And so there's a lot of different ways for your son, and depending on your business, use cases where AI can fit. It's helped me in my limited understanding. On the outside, I jump in and say, well, how can it help me? And my friends that are reaching out to me, they're like, hey, how do I do this with AI? And personal use cases, they're trying to develop policies, or they're trying to write documents and do their resume. Those are all very powerful tools with AI now. So
let's say, because I work in insurance sometimes. I work in insurance, right? And when you say to someone, I can pay you EFT, electronic funds transfer, and so I want you to say AI to that person who probably is scared to even put their banking information somewhere. That person who is going to be like, AI, oh my God, so somebody's going to steal my stuff. And I learned about my church sister or my this, that, who had their stuff stolen. And so a lot of people, when they hear AI, it's like this far thing away from them. And then it's going to come and it's going to infiltrate them. So some people are not seeing AI as, wait a minute, it's artificial intelligence that I can use to enable my life to move a bit more seamlessly. So we want to have the conversation to where we can get to those people to say, don't be scared of AI. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
well, you know what? Fear is crippling. We know that for a fact. And oftentimes, when it comes to AR, oftentimes here on the show we mention ChatGPT. ChatGPT isn't cutting us a check. However, they happen to be the one that they're highly branded since they went public in 22, right? So and they're constantly evolving. And so ChatGPT has the free version and it has the paid version. What I would say to all parties, for those individuals that are afraid of AI because someone's going to steal their information, like all things, you don't want to put your personal information into these chatbots, into these AI systems. And you don't want to put anything personal to yourself. You don't want to put any proprietary information in there. So if you don't want your social security number, just like anything that is confidential information, just like you wouldn't send that through a non-secure email. So it's going to boil down to common sense, a common sense issue.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everyone has common sense, but here's the thing. You don't want to put something that you don't want out there in the system, because with large language models, as someone that's, learning AI for the first time, these are training models. So if you are putting your personal information on there, that personal information may be regurgitated out to others that are training within the space that you're utilizing that. So you don't want to use AI to do anything with your personal information. However, AI, artificial intelligence, along with your knowledge set, your skill set, it is something that is to assist you in your best next steps. So for the fearful person that is afraid that somebody's going to steal their information, I'm going to say what I would say to all parties involved. Across the board, dwell on those things that are good and lovely, because whatever it is that you dwell on, you're going to bring that energy back to you. So if you could somehow think of something that you could become a best next steps for yourself, then ask yourself, what are my best next steps? And then better yet, ask the AI platform that you're using, what are my best next steps you mentioned something. What did you mention earlier, Yingi, about putting some automation together? What were you asking? I can't think of the word you were using, but I'm going to use an example on how to use AI with regard to what you wanted to know. Your social media platform. AI,
right, like automating posts and stuff like that.
Right. So AI, I'm gonna. This is what I would ask the whatever platform we would use. AI, what can I do that would assist me and my son in building an automated post for social media? And then it's like you start with a simple question, and then it'll ask you more. And with all questions, with all relationships, because the machine is in relationship with you. If you are signed in, then it's going to build a profile on you. And so as you're having these conversations at Yingi with the machine of choice that you use for your AI model, it's going to be growing in dialogue that you share with it. So you can build something great. You start with something small, and then the more information that you share with the model, it's going to give you other information. And then it's going to prompt you, oh, okay, that's not quite what I meant. Try this. So it's simply a platform, if you will, to assist you in the task of your best next steps. How could a Yingi become her best next person? Okay, well, what are the things that you're passionate about? And then simply put that into the model that you're using. How can I XYZ?
Okay. Okay, I've started to twindle with ChatGPT, so now I can. Well, after the last conversation that you guys had, I went in there a bit more.
And that's what we want you to do, Yingi. That's what we want all people to do, to remove the myth, demystify that it is something to be afraid of.
Yeah, because I went in there and was asking questions about different things. I had it looking like creating a logo, different things I was asking ChatGPT.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So that makes sense. But yeah, my son is interested in robotics. So, well, my grandson is trying to get in here. So that's one of the reasons why for me, I know that like their parents, right? Who they're choosing not to learn about what's going on with technology because they can just hand their child a phone or hand their child a computer and be like, I want to do this, you do it. And I don't think that's good because kids are not necessarily they don't have foresight unless you have that, you have a special smart one. Most don't have foresight. So as parents, it's going to be incumbent on us to learn about what's going on. Then we're able to better apply and guide our children through AI because this is it. This is them. When we did it, we had to have books and look at different scenarios and then come up with the best one we want to present to our teacher and be at the library a lot of hours. They don't have that. So that's for me, that's what prompted me to want to be looking into data, AI, what he has access to now. He downloaded an app on the iPhone and he was drawing stuff and doing animation. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, when did he learn this? But he's actually creating animation and things are jumping and things are moving and it's a whole video. And I'm like, wait a minute, so that's what piqued me to be like, I need to get on this.
Do you remember? I like to kind of reach back a little bit, but do you remember back in the day? And you said something that kind of hit a chord with me. The families that had encyclopedias and the families that didn't have encyclopedias.
Yeah, my dad was a teacher.
Okay, so your father's a teacher, so you were in that lucky area where you had it because that was your father's profession. But like when it comes to economies, you didn't have an encyclopedia. You were going to the library, to do projects, to learn, because that was kind of your first step is, okay, you got to do research. Was the first thing you grabbed was an encyclopedia to figure out what it was, because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have information. We were just, okay, so what do we start? Well, the big thing is now is I come from maybe a socially poor class, right? So if I needed to learn anything, I had to go to the library, and that was my home. But now computers, information, AI has leveled the playing field now. Everyone has access to information. What was once, difficult because maybe a few had access to it, because some people didn't live close to a library in proximity to a library. Fortunately, in my lifetime, I always was close to libraries, and I could go if I needed to learn how to, write video games in pre-basic for a Commodore 64. I could find a book on that. That's access to information quickly, and I think it levels the playing ground. And to get into the point is for your son who wants to learn about robotics, maybe start looking. You now, where before to learn about robotics you had to go to a special school or you had to know someone. Now, if you want to learn anything about robotics in an afternoon, you can be tuned up and start thinking about, okay, these are the things I want to buy in order for me to start to learn about robotics. If I want to learn about Raspberry Pis, boom, you're in there now. You have information. You can start learning how to write programs for your robots before you even have your robots ready, where you can virtualize this information, and all that's available now at your fingertips. And those are the advantages, not just of AI, but all the information. AI does bring it, if you ask it a question, how do I learn to maybe do this with robotics? I don't know. We'll just say any specific use case. We'll just jump into Raspberry Pis. I want to be able to use Raspberry Pis to be able to gain a cellular signal. And I don't know. We'll just go from there. I want to be able to control it from my cell phone, not from a remote control. Things like that. The AI would give you at least the first 5-10 steps that would give you direction, and then you can go from there. And those things we never had. I mean, it gives me chills that the amount of information our kids and our grandchildren have access to now.
Yeah.
You said the key word, Lucky, Yingi. The key word for me is